Good afternoon and welcome to our daily live coverage, where we continue to follow the latest developments in a rapidly evolving regional situation, carrying serious political, security, economic, and strategic implications. Recently, tensions have escalated with heinous Iranian attacks targeting the state of Kuwait, Gulf nations, and the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan for a sixth consecutive day, and US President Donald Trump reinstating a naval blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. In an escalating development today, the Ministry of Electricity, Water and Renewable Energy announced that its power generation and water desalination plants was attacked as a result of the Iranian aggression against the state of Kuwait. The attack caused a fire to break out, resulting in damage to facilities within the plant and to several power generation units. The ministry confirmed that firefighting teams have successfully brought the fire under control. Technical teams are continuing repair work and restoring the affected units to service, while closely monitoring the stability of the national power grid. The ministry also urged citizens and residents to conserve electricity consumption during their exceptional period, affirming that it will continue to keep the public informed of any developments through its official communication channels. Meanwhile, Pakistan's Foreign Office urged the United States and Iran to end violence and resume technical-level negotiations as Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding faces growing challenges. During a weekly press briefing, Foreign Office spokesperson reaffirmed Pakistan's commitment to diplomacy and said Islamabad would continue working with all parties to preserve the Pakistan-Qatar mediated peace framework. As we examine the latest development, we'll look at the military, political, and diplomatic dimensions of the crisis. What are the real objectives of both the United States and Iran? Can Qatar and Pakistan influence both sides to halt hostilities and return to the negotiation table? These are the questions shaping the conversation as the world watches the next moves from Washington and Tehran. In today's coverage, we'll examine these events from several key perspectives. Joining me through the next hour will be our correspondent in London, as well as political analysts in Washington and Islamabad, who will give us the latest updates from their perspectives. Let's first take a look at this report, which details renewed calls from China and Pakistan to de-escalate tensions and return to dialogue.
The foreign ministers of the People's Republic of China and Pakistan have called on the United States and Iran to immediately cease hostilities and resume dialogue, according to a statement from Beijing released today. The comments came during a meeting between China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi and his Pakistani counterpart Ishaq Dar in Shanghai on Wednesday. The two officials expressed concern over the worsening of the current situation and called on the parties involved to immediately cease hostilities, make efforts to overcome difficulties, eliminate interference, restart contacts, resume dialogue, and strive to reach a comprehensive peace agreement through negotiations. They said the international community should also continue to provide assistance in this regard. Lauding the role of Pakistani mediation, Wang emphasized that Phase 1 of the Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding that was reached between the United States and Iran was hard-won. He said the core provisions of the memorandum not only conform to the fundamental and long-term interests of the parties involved, but also meet the common expectations of the international community. Wang, however, warned that peace is within reach, and we cannot afford to lose it now, let alone let it slip away. Wang affirmed that China will always support Pakistan's mediation efforts and will continue to play a constructive role in promoting de-escalation in its own way. The statement came as the United States and Iran continued to exchange retaliatory military strikes for 6 consecutive days amid tensions over the Strait of Hormuz.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to welcome via Zoom from Islamabad political analyst Dr. Abdurrahman Al-Salhi. Thank you so much for joining us, Doctor.
Thank you very much for having me with you in your show.
Doctor, we've seen that the political tension in the region have escalated. What has led to the rise in tensions over the past week with strikes from both the US and Iran?
Thank you very much. What we have seen that, the 14 points of Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding it has been, as we understood that, it has been like misunderstood by both parties. Everyone understood that point, I mean, according to his interest, either Iran or USA, especially part number four, which was talking about the regulations and Hormuz Strait, and how the shipping are coming and going through that port, I mean, Strait of Hormuz. So now what happens is that, due to these escalations, Pakistan, yes, yesterday they called through the minister, foreign minister, through the spokesperson of the foreign minister that urged both sides to come back again to the at a technical level, not on the political level, just at a technical level, they can come and start discussions. Means that all the ways now, I mean, like the sound of military actions is above or more even than the sound of negotiations. That was very clear because Islamabad, for the first time, was mentioned that the MOU is passing through a critical challenge or difficult challenges nowadays. So today also, like there was a meeting between the foreign minister of Pakistan, Ishaq Dar, and his counterpart, Chinese counterpart, and again they urged both sides, China, Iran, and USA to come back to the negotiation table and to solve their issues. I mean, by the diplomacy way. Yeah, still there is, there is a hope. Basically, still there is a hope, at least to escalate this tension in the region. But the issue up to now, what we have seen that expanding this type of war, like for example today again, I mean, new area has been again attacked or started by Iran. That is, Syria as well. Means that the expansion is going on. Also, we have seen that. I mean, like Houthis in Yemen, they are doing something in Bab al-Mandab Strait. So all these issues, it makes the file and the negotiation, the files on the negotiation table more complicated to be, resolved easily. But the mediators, they believe that this type of mediations, it was not like a traditional mediation from the beginning. They knew that this is a very difficult, task has given to them, especially Pakistan at the beginning. Now Qatar and also Oman is there, but they said that we will not stop. I mean, up to date. I mean, when we meet the people here, I mean the uh, key people here, or when from the media as well as when we come to see also their media, they said that the negotiations or the mediations will not be stopped because if they stop, it means that they are surrounded or they are lifting everything just for the military action.
And Dr. Abdurrahman, Pakistan and China released a statement today calling for de-escalation following a meeting between the two countries' foreign ministers. Can you tell us about the statement and the meeting itself?
Yeah, the meeting basically they were discussing how to go ahead for version 2 of TPAC between Pakistan and China. But the main focus also was on the regional tension nowadays, and they called and they urged both, I mean, Iran and USA to come back to the negotiations and to solve their issues through the diplomacy and so. And they focused also more on also the regional security and the Strait of Hormuz as well from their, I mean, statements. So there was like many discussions. I mean, or the statements was like contain of 4 or 5 points. One of them it was the yes, it was a feedback. This is like a bilateral relations because Pakistan also they are trying to open a new, doors for them to the mid of Asia by there was like as we know that Pakistan they have issues with in the border of Afghanistan, and they are planning that since April to have Jawadir port to work functionally. I mean, well, that was one point, but the main point which they are focusing on it also, as I told you, that they are calling both sides means that this type of mediation it's not stopped, and we are at least as an analyst we see that now maybe as China was, for example, at least behind Pakistan, pushing them for the a good for the mediations. maybe now China it comes back, or it will come like in front. So the expanding of the countries which they will be as a mediations, maybe as a mediators, maybe will increase, because as we have seen that the escalations now is increased, so it needs more powerful countries also to come through this. Yes, we understand at least that Gulf countries up to date, despite they receive some missiles and drones, from Iran, and we have seen that, but still they are calling for escalating the tension in the region. We have seen also that, China from the day one was calling for the escalating the tension and reducing the hostilities, in the region. Now they start, again with this type of statements, the joint statements between Pakistan and China. That means maybe within few days we can hear, maybe like stopping of this war and coming back to the point. But up to date, they what we have understand at least from here, that they are thinking that, the mediator countries, they are thinking that if this war continue for some few days, maybe these two militaries, of US and Iran, they will be tired and they will come back again for the negotiations, or someone will have more advantages or more points, over the other, and Iran will come to the negotiation table. Up to now, Iran, they refused, at least because what we have seen from the USA trying at level best to, at least to control or to limit the IRGC forces in Iran, so that either by what we heard in the news that there is some type of divisions in the leadership of Iran, or might be by somehow they will come again to the table within maybe few days. But still, from now until few days, it needs more, effort from these countries to, the mediation countries, to bring them back to the table.
Yes, and is Pakistan and Qatar continuing with their mediation efforts despite the recent escalation? And is there any sign of a return to the negotiations table?
Yeah, there is. There is like what we heard, that at least there is like two types of appendix, or files are working on them as additional, files will be added to MOU. One of them is the technical security technical file, and the other one is like the what they call it, like the law file, or the I mean, the one which will explain every terminology or misunderstanding in the MOU. So will be like more details will be added to the MOU. So everyone will know his, what is his task, and what was the point which was misunderstood. As we know that like they were 14 points, but these 14 points, some of them, not some of them, all, most of them, they have been, infiltrated, and no one, follow that point. Starting from the ceasefire itself, up to date, there is no ceasefire. Starting from the Hormuz Strait itself, no one, comply to that. So they are working now, and there is some hope, but it's not sure, from these backdoor channels diplomacy, which they are working day and night to bring the people, because they know the cost of leaving this indirect channels for bringing them is very high.
Yes, Doctor. And lastly, looking ahead to the next couple of days or weeks, where do you see the conflict heading, and what are the next moves from Pakistan in their mediation efforts?
Unfortunately, what we have seen, that the escalation has been started with 80 targets in Iran, for example, and also targets from Iran to the Gulf countries. Today, what we have seen, that the expansion of the escalation from US, and also the expansion of escalation from Iran to Syria, and also activating their proxy Houthi in Yemen. That might be, it will take also some time, and it will make the files of negotiations also more difficult. That's why, either these two parties, two enemies, they become tired, or they understand at least that they are not going to be defeated, or something happening like a huge penetration happened in Iran by dividing their leaderships. I mean, in terms of IRCG, I mean the military forces, not the pragmatic one or the diplomatic leadership, which they have all the time. What we have seen in the media that they have some, opinions at least, or they cannot, you can say decisionless. They are up to date. So if there is some penetration in Iran, or they understand, or the mediators themselves, they reach to some common of understanding between them and bring them to the table. In my opinion, that this war will not be, be more than 1 week. At least from now, not more than 1 week. Then they will come back to the at least to somehow of negotiation.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Abdurrahman. Political analyst Dr. Abdurrahman Salhi from Islamabad, thank you once again for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back after this quick break. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at the following report detailing the latest rise in tensions over the past week.
Tensions between the United States and Iran intensified on Wednesday as both sides raised the stakes in a widening confrontation centered on the Strait of Hormuz, regional shipping routes, and energy exports. U.S. President Donald Trump warned Tehran that it could face further military action if it does not return to negotiations, saying future strikes could target critical infrastructure, including power plants and bridges. In an interview, Trump said Washington would continue applying pressure on Iran and urged Tehran to reach an agreement, warning that the coming week could bring tougher measures if talks fail. Addressing the possibility of a ground operation, President Trump said he did not want a land campaign, but suggested that other parties could carry out such an operation if necessary, without identifying those parties. U.S. officials said the main objective of the current military campaign is to restore freedom of navigation through the Strait of Hormuz, a key global energy corridor, and pressure Tehran back into negotiations over its nuclear program. Officials said Washington is seeking to avoid a full-scale war while relying on economic pressure and the impact of reduced oil exports to influence Iran's decision-making. Analysts noted that even limited threats to shipping could affect global markets by increasing insurance costs and creating uncertainty for commercial operators. In response, Tehran said it was no longer committed to previous arrangements after Washington reinstated a naval blockade targeting Iranian ports. The latest developments have heightened fears of a broader regional conflict, with Gulf countries and international markets closely monitoring the impact on security, shipping, and energy supplies.
Welcome back, dear viewers. I am now delighted to be joined via Zoom by our correspondent in London, Jamal Shaheen. Mr. Jamal, it's always a pleasure having you here with us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure for me to join your program.
Mr. Jamal, can you give us the latest updates from your side on the escalation in the region this past week?
Even the United States, even the United Kingdom is very busy with a new prime minister, which you have a new announcement today. Andy Burnham will replace Keir Starmer. But United Kingdom is confirmed many, many times. The de-escalation of the situation in Middle East is the only way, and the diplomatic solution is the only way. But in the same time, there is a growing feeling here in United Kingdom and around the globe. There is no trust between many of this country and the Iranian, because the Iranian still continue its hostile and appalling activity against their neighbor, which is have a huge impact in the peace and security and stability, not only in the Gulf and around the area of the Strait of Hormuz, but in the globe, because this is have a huge negative effect in the global economy and is affecting very badly with the energy market around the globe. United Kingdom is said, as the foreign secretary announced 4 days ago, they are ready to do whatever it can to support diplomatic. And she asked and urged Iran to stop its hostile activity. And also she confirmed she will support any negotiation with the conditioning that Iran not to allow Iran to have a nuclear program and minimizing its capability to attack their neighbor by drone and also by long missiles. There is also here, even 2 days ago, the people here in United Kingdom insist there is a huge need for a new air defense system, because the experience from the war in Ukraine and Iran, we need a new system to deploy in United Kingdom and in Gulf state to protect the sky of our deep-rooted ally in the region.
Yes, and Mr. Jamal, the United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operations Center reported this morning an attack on a tanker in the Strait of Hormuz. What are the latest UK efforts concerning the disruption in the Strait?
The center 3 days ago raised its advice because to crossing the Strait of Hormuz, and they urge all ships to avoid crossing the Strait of Hormuz because the hostile activity is started now. The United Kingdom has initiative was France to deploy multinational force, but unfortunately, this is initiative. It should be after ending the hostile activity and reach to a final agreement between Iran and the United States. Till now, the only thing they can do is to urge both sides to de-escalate the situation and stop the war and back to the table. And then within 6 days, they are ready to deploy the multinational force to demining the Strait of Hormuz, and also to have like a policing unit to escort the ship and secure the navigation of the Strait of Hormuz. But because of the hostile activity, we're still at the same point. We have a confirmation that the new prime minister is committed also to deep its relationship with GCC country and also to do whatever it can to guarantee the freedom of navigation at the Strait of Hormuz.
Yes, and Mr. Jamal, the UK economy returned to growth in May, but official figures showed expansion was muted amid price pressure and supply chain issues due to the war. What is the latest economic effects of the conflict?
Even if we have a growth, but this growth is for limited time. It is not the growth the government promised and expected. If I quote it from Andrew Bailey, the governor of Bank of England, he said, yes, we have a growth, we have some positive news, but the more closure of the Strait of Hormuz, the more we are expected to have negative impact, That means we have interest rate will be raised and the cost of living will be higher, and the negative impact of the UK economy and the global economy will be higher. If this situation is continue, we expect, according to IMF and World Bank, and also many economic think tanks, that we will have the growth of the economy will be minimized by 1% by the end of this year. Here in United Kingdom, if this situation continue, we expect the food inflation, it might be raised to 9%. That means a huge negative impact in the cost of living in United Kingdom and the other country. This is why there is urgent need to de-escalate the situation, not because of the stability and stop the war, but also to save the global economy from another shock that we have after the war in Ukraine and also after the pandemic at COVID-19. Now we have the war in Iran have a huge negative impact in the UK economy. That means maybe we expect a raise of interest rate next month. Let me say also the report of the financial stability, which announced by Bank of England last week, that have a huge concern about this situation and warning if this situation continue, it might be there is high loan and high borrowing and high cost, and the government of the United Kingdom will pay much more than they expect, and this will affect the global economy and the growth in the future.
Mr. Jamal, could there be any change with the next Prime Minister?
The long-standing position for the United Kingdom is to de-escalate the situation. But maybe there is a glimmer of hope that the new Prime Minister will deal with Donald Trump. Maybe there will be a new common ground, because we saw last 3 months there is a little bit different and criticized from Donald Trump to the United Kingdom, which is the closest ally here. But let's wait and see how it will go. But even that, the new Prime Minister has promised he will do everything to make the growth going. We don't know if we will go to war, but the only thing we have a confirmation about is he will deep its relationship with GCC country and the coordination with them, because this is long strategy. And in the same time, we will see how the relationship between United Kingdom and United States will be, and with the new Prime Minister, which will be in power in next Monday.
Correspondent in London, Jamal Shaheen, thank you once again for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a quick break and come back. Ladies and gentlemen, we just received some breaking news. The Arab Interior Ministers Council denounced the heinous Iranian attacks against Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar and Jordan. And we'll now take a look at our next report, looking at the latest effects of the conflict on the global oil markets.
Oil prices inched higher today after Iran stepped up attacks across the Gulf, with the broken truce limiting oil flows out of the Strait of Hormuz. Brent crude futures rose $1.05, or about 1.25%, to $85.28 a barrel, and the U.S. West Texas Intermediate futures rose $1.03, or 1.3%, to $79.98 a barrel, erasing losses from the previous session. Both benchmark contracts have climbed nearly 12% this week, with Brent on track for a third consecutive weekly gain, and the WTI for a second weekly gain. For the first time since a memorandum of understanding paused fighting last month, the United States launched 2 big waves of airstrikes in a single day on Wednesday, mostly on targets near Iran's southern coast, and kept firing on Thursday. Market analysts said geopolitical risks remain firmly supportive for oil, but after a strong rally, traders are adopting a wait-and-watch approach. The focus has shifted from the threat itself to whether there is any tangible disruption to oil flows, and how both the United States and Iran choose to respond in the coming days. Oil prices have gained this week as attacks deepened supply disruption in the Strait of Hormuz, which handled about a fifth of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas trade before the war began. Fewer vessels passed through the Strait of Hormuz on Wednesday, the first day after the United States reimposed its naval blockade on Iran. 7 crossed on Wednesday, down from 13 the previous day. Hostilities between Iran and the United States reignited last week, weakening an already fragile truce reached in June after several months of fighting. Goldman Sachs said Brent could exceed $110 a barrel in the fourth quarter if the Gulf export recovery continues to stall, but could fall into the 60s by year-end if tensions ease and production recovers faster than expected. Analysts cautioned in a note that the supply disruptions were flaring up at a time when U.S. commercial oil inventories are at the lowest levels since 2022 and the lowest levels for the season since 2018.
الإدارة العامة للدفاع المدني على استعداد تام وجاهزية عالية، ونعمل وفق خطط مدروسة ومحدثة باستمرار لمواجهة أي طارئ، ونتابع مع الجهات الحكومية كل ما يخص احتياجاتها لضمان استمرار نظام سير العمل وعجلة الإنتاج وسير الحياة الطبيعية، ونقول للجميع سلامتكم أولويتنا.
الحرس الوطني قادة وقوات دائما على استعداد وجاهزية تامة لحماية الوطن بالتعاون مع زملاء السلاح في وزارتي الدفاع والداخلية وقوة الإطفاء العام، وتقديم الدعم والإسناد لكافة جهات الدولة، خاصة في أوقات الأزمات والطوارئ. ونسأل الله أن يحفظ وطننا الكويت من كل مكروه في ظل قيادته الرشيدة.
الإدارة العامة للدفاع المدني على استعداد تام وجاهزية عالية، ونعمل وفق خطط مدروسة ومحدثة باستمرار لمواجهة أي طارئ، ونتابع مع الجهات الحكومية كل ما يخص احتياجاتها لضمان استمرار نظام سير العمل وعجلة الإنتاج وسير الحياة الطبيعية، ونقول للجميع سلامتكم أولويتنا.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to welcome via Zoom from Washington political analyst Mr. Aziz Fahmy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Mr. Aziz, what has led to the rise in tensions over the past week?
Basically, there was a huge disagreement over how to interpret the agreement that was signed between the two countries. And I said from the very, very beginning, I said there will be problems because the whole thing was written in only 1.5 pages, which means that it is full of vague language, could be interpreted one way or another or a third way. And so the dispute was over Article number 5. Iran interpreted as it has the right to only decide what are the pathways that all ships has to go through. So when they and Iran wanted to assert its control over the Strait of Hormuz, and the United States responded by agreeing with Oman or pressuring Oman, because at one time President Trump said that, I would destroy Oman, which is an ally of the US. So anyway, the result was they created a pathway nearby the borders of Oman to basically deny Iran from controlling the Strait of Hormuz. And so they, as United States, resorted to force. Iran also resorted to force and attacked many ships going on that passageway, saying this is not authorized passage and you cannot do it. You have to coordinate with the Iranian authorities before crossing the Strait of Hormuz. And so we started to have this, tug of war between the United States and Iran over the interpretation of Article number 5. And as a result, shipping through Strait of Hormuz stopped because, the insurance company would not insure vessels to go through because it's not safe. So anyway, so that's why the United States decided to go back to war in order to force Iran to sign a new frame agreement that would deny Iran this interpretation of Article number 5, which means that this is going to take some time. First, it's going to take some time for attacks in order to convince or force Iran to accept a new agreement, and then the negotiations of the agreement itself. The problem here lies in that how long that would take could have a serious impact on oil prices, and therefore it will create problems for the United States and President Trump. So we don't know what's going to play out, and we have to wait and see.
And Mr. Abdulaziz, President Trump said previously that Iran wants to make a deal. What are the latest in regards to the peace talks?
Well, President Trump, say all the time that Iran is desperate to make a deal, and Iran has been contacting us, and Iran is asking us to stop bombing, and Iran is. But then the Iranians said, no, we did not do any of these things, and so we really don't know. And so, the mediator, especially the Pakistani, are trying to convince both sides to go back to the negotiating table. But there is ongoing negotiations? We really don't know. We did not see any evidence of that. So now we have consecutive 6 days of bombing, and Iran is responding, so as long as Iran is able to respond, America will continue to bomb, hoping that Iran will at one point will not be able to respond and then would go to the negotiating table.
Mr. Abdulaziz, President Trump also said that the recent strikes are meant to pressure Iran into making a deal. Is that accurate, and are the strikes expected to continue?
Oh, absolutely. Well, this is the announced strategy. It's not a secret strategy. You know, he verbalized it so many times. We will continue to bomb. He said, until I see it is enough. And it's enough means that Iran came to the negotiating table and agree on the American terms. But this was the beginning, what President Trump was hoping to achieve. And Iran have proved to be very reluctant to, I was very stubborn and reluctant to come to the agreement that the United States wants. So that's why the current agreement was somewhere in between. And that's why a lot of people, even in the US, interpret the last agreement or the current agreement as it was favoring in Iran, because it was Iran who did very well by not collapsing under the American air attack, an Israeli air attack. So now we are trying to change this agreement, and it depends really how the oil prices will be impacted and how long the fighting will continue. That will determine who will be more willing to make compromises when they go to the negotiating table again.
And Mr. Aziz, the conflict is not popular in the United States. Is there pressure internally on the Trump administration to halt hostilities and find a peaceful solution to the crisis?
Yes, this has been going on for a while, actually, because there was a movement in the Congress to deny President Trump the right to use military force beyond the 60 days that he started to launch the war without congressional approval. And then now President Trump's position is that, well, we stopped the war and we reached an agreement, but now Iran did not respect the agreement. Of course, Iran said it was the US did not respect the agreement. And then so the US is going back to war, and now it believes that it has a new 60 days that it can continue hostilities without the congressional approval. We will see how that will play out in the Congress, and we'll but the biggest pressure on the U.S. is the oil prices because of the upcoming election, and the American taxpayer, American voter tend to punish the government that in power if the prices goes up. And there is affordability issue going on right now. So it's increasing. And so some Republicans are really concerned that they will pay a price in the election. And President Trump is trying to, show brave and strong positions, not be feeling the pressure of the public polls that says that the war is not popular and that his own popularity has been going down, down, down. But some Republican congressmen and senators are really concerned about their own position. So maybe they would line up with Democrats and try to pass a resolution to stop the war. But I really don't think this is going to happen.
And Mr. Aziz, the economy in the United States has been affected by the conflict and the continued uncertainty in the Strait of Hormuz. What can you tell us in terms of the latest economic effects of the conflict?
Well, that is a major factor because the United States is suffering from high prices already, from inflation already. And for oil prices to be increasing in this time, it exacerbate the situation and make it more difficult politically for the Republican Party, which is responsible for the war in a sense, because the Republican Party completely support President Trump. The Democratic Party is opposing the war and try to prevent the president from using the military force in Iran. And this will continue. Whether we're going to get to the critical mass that the position of the Congress can really impact reality on the battlefield, we'll see.
And lastly, looking ahead to the next couple of days or weeks, where do you see the conflict heading? Will the escalations continue?
Very much so. We are in a trajectory for violence to continue unless there has been some change in heart and in mind. One indication is that G.D. Vance, the vice president, had an announcement or basically had an interview in which he said that, bombing by itself will not give us the guarantee that Iran will not do more uranium, and that's the program would actually stop. So so he's saying that the president strategy was to mix military force along with the diplomatic track. So which means that the United States has started to think that's on the long run we have also to go to the negotiating tables, not only Iran but also the U.S. to achieve its own goals of preventing the weaponization of nuclear program in Iran.
Political analyst in Washington, Mr. Aziz Fahmy, thank you once again for your time and input here today. Ladies and gentlemen, as we come to the end of this special live coverage on KTV2, we have examined the evolving regional situation from several important perspectives. Our thanks once again to the guests who joined me throughout this coverage and shared their insight on the latest developments regarding the crisis in the Middle East. Be sure to tune in again at 7 p.m. for the main news bulletin, where I'll bring you the latest news and developments from around the world. Take care.